Hey guys, it's Raquel, and today we're going to be talking about limits, or I guess what most people refer to as boundaries. I think most people in the health community talk about this topic as setting healthy boundaries, and that never made any sense to me when I was in the beginning stages of this work, because, well, how do you set something that is already there? In this video, I'm gonna refer to them as limits, sometimes as boundaries. There are very few things that are more important to your health and your happiness than being able to say no. People who are really happy have no trouble doing this, but some of us didn't grow up exactly with that luxury, the luxury of, saying no and having that being respected and or even acknowledged. We forget that we have limits. We are trained to override them, ignore them, neglect them. And I've come to realize recently that happiness has a lot more to do with saying no than with saying yes. It feels so good when you start exercising. It's so good. There are a few common signs that I've noticed that indicate that people have weak boundaries, or what you would call like leaky boundaries, which is, I think it's hilarious because it makes me think of a balloon with a bunch of holes in it. But basically, some of the signs include saying yes when you mean no, agreeing to do things that you do not want to do, tolerating things and behaviors that you know affect you negatively, chronic or repressed anger, a desire to be liked and approved of by everybody, staying in a job that you hate, staying in toxic or unsafe feeling relationships, saying that certain things are okay even if they are not, eating when you're not even hungry, making decisions based exclusively on logic. So today I'm going to be covering what limits are, why they're so important, and some steps that you can take to start remembering what your limits are. So a limit or a boundary is basically a set of preferences. It is kind of like a perimeter around your physical, mental, and emotional body. And inside of this perimeter is your health and your happiness. Outside of it is a really miserable life, basically. Unresolved wounds from your limits not being respected can accumulate in the emotional body, particularly in the form of suppressed anger. This suppressed anger can sort of explode in the physical body through symptoms like chronic pain, including back pain and migraines, anxiety, low self-esteem, fatigue, depression, and a general lack of happiness. If you spend any time around children, you know how if you speak louder and tell them not to do something, the child may say that you just hit them, even though you haven't physically hit them. But the reason that it feels that way is because that's happening on the emotional level, and to a child knows that this is an emotional body that is being hit. By the time we're adults, we've already forgotten about it, but it doesn't mean that you don't have one, and it doesn't mean that verbal abuse is not affecting you, or any kind of emotional, psychological abuse is not affecting you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I highly recommend you see my previous video on emotional abuse, how it is the cornerstone of depression. Basically, this makes limits and boundaries probably the most important work that you're gonna have to do if you want to recover a sense of health and happiness. Now, let's talk about how to overcome it and how to remember what your limits are. Keep in mind that you can make this strategy on a practical level look as simple as just following your joy and just keep an eye out for the things that don't make you feel good. It could be that simple. The idea is for you to take this strategy and personalize it to your own unique preference, especially since this is about boundaries and it's all about preferences, and really find what works for you. It's about remembering who you really are and your most authentic truth. Boundaries are indicated by negative emotions and symptoms. And as you become more and more of a pro at gauging what good decisions are good for you and which ones are not good for you, you'll be able to tell in advance what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and you'll be able to respect the boundary by acknowledging it before you even violate it. This may be a little bit unrealistic to some of us at the beginning. So my first step is to make as many decisions as possible throughout your daily life based on questioning whether it feels like the expansive or the self-loving thing to do. The reason this works is because your body has an uncorrupted vibration and it would always tell you the truth. So you could literally try out the choices and feel them in your body. Whichever way you decide to do this, make sure that the method that you choose or that you develop for yourself is always tailored to this unique moment. Don't try to think about the future or the past. The reason for this is because as you grow and as you expand, your limits may also expand or they may contract. So some of the things that used to be okay with you are no longer okay with you, and some of the things that were not okay with you before suddenly are just fine. And if you want some help on how to do the expansive or the self-loving thing, and you want to know how to try out the choices for yourself, then you can check out the video that I linked below. It's kind of like a mini walkthrough on how to do this for yourself. The second thing is to work on identifying what your limits are in the first place. I found that the easiest way to do this as a beginner, when you are not very much in touch with how you feel, or maybe you don't even know how to feel, maybe it's too scary for you right now, is by watching the aftermath of saying yes without even knowing that you actually meant to say yes, or without knowing that you needed to say no. There are also dietary limits to your unique constitution, so you may, for example, find that a lot of the times that you eat, you have a lot of physical, stomach pain, and you take testing for it and you find that you're gluten intolerant, and now you know for a fact that that is a limit for your body. You cannot cross that limit. Well, you could, but by watching the aftermath, you get the physical pain, you get the brain fog, you get the uneasiness. Now you know that you have an aftermath as a result of something. So you have the aftermath, decision, question mark. There's something in there, something happened that is making this, that is giving you this negative reaction. Number 3 is to bring as much awareness and presence as possible to the decisions that you have made that didn't feel good. There's a point at which most of us start feeling guilty or ashamed or embarrassed or angry or disappointed about ourselves, and we immediately start looking for an escape. So for example, you just went to a party and you didn't want to go for whatever reason, and now you're bored to tears, and you may find yourself drinking way too much just to not have to deal with the dreaded feeling of I don't want to be here. Before you reach for another drink, my recommendation would be to really take a moment to kind of pause the impulse to take another drink and really tune in to how you feel, how your body's feeling, what are the emotions, what are the sensations. Make it as somatic as you possibly can. Or at the very least, just acknowledge that you're trying to escape because this decision was not the expansive decision for you to do. So you're going to be postponing the escape. You're not going to be trying to stop yourself from escaping necessarily, unless that actually feels good to you. But as a beginner, usually that's not the case. You need your escape, and there's a time and a place for everything. So the more that you feel the shittiness of your decisions, the less that you'll want to continue doing that, and the more that you'll want to go towards feeling good. Number 4 is to send love and compassion for the part of you that cannot say no. This is one of those things that is very paradoxical. This is basically applied self-love, and it makes no sense, but it works. So that's why I like to recommend it. It's basically, by loving the part of you that is a doormat, you become really good at standing up for yourself. And by loving the part of you that, needs to binge out, you end up feeling like you need to binge less. It's weird, just try it. Let me know how it goes. Step number 5 is to ask supporting loved ones in your life that you really feel safe with to question the little decisions that you make in your life. Specifically question the why behind them and whether they are actually okay with you. Make sure that these are individuals that you really feel safe with and that can bring a lot of compassion and understanding to the process that you're going through, as opposed to someone that you don't feel safe with them, you don't feel like they're very empathic. Identifying the why behind their yeses with as much compassion and understanding as possible can not only seriously turn up your awareness around your limits, but also by doing this exercise and engaging other people in it, it can actually increase your connection levels and the amount of safety and belonging that you're feeling in your life, which is kind of like bonus points, extra credit in terms of your overall health and happiness. If you don't have anyone in your life who feels this way for you, then maybe hire someone, hire a coach or a counselor, someone who can help you, dive deep and really question these things. Step number 6 is to aim to become as authentic as you possibly can. This is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you're wanting and pretending to be something that you are not, you're violating your limit of needing to be yourself and also your entire set of preferences without any regard as to how it may affect your life. Now, authenticity is a huge topic in and of itself, and I could make a whole video on it. I understand that you may not want to be authentic. You may be too afraid of the consequences of it. This is a very deeply personal decision to make. Part of this whole authenticity process is to question the why behind the things that you do. And even if you're not doing the previous step, which is engaging other people in it, you can still just do it for yourself. Just questioning why you do the things that you do will still take you in the right direction, which is inward, right? This is the 7th direction when you go in. My 7th tip is to take your long, sweet time and really appreciate the current stage where you're at. You may be at a place where it's fairly easy to, have an acquaintance that you thought would be a potential friend, but they're doing something you expressed that wasn't okay with you, and they continue to do it. You may be okay with, letting go of this person in your life because they're not caring for your personal limits. However, you're not ready to do the same thing with your family members. That's okay. There's a stage, there's a time and a place for everything. You're not going to be getting this right off the bat, and it takes time. I think it really takes time, and it takes commitment too. The process of remembering who you actually are and what your limits are is a whole journey in and of itself. The 8th step, and this is an optional step, but I think it would be really good for all of us in this community, is to share in the comments below anything that has helped you in this process. Anytime we have a tool or a tip that has helped us, it can always help someone else, even if it's not directly, but if it helps them get inspired or maybe a light bulb goes off, I think it is worth sharing. I hope you experience the sweet freedom of being able to say no and the amazing feels that a life of non-obligation can bring with it. You deserve to have every one of your limits respected and acknowledged, regardless of how inconvenient they may be to other people. So like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.